Our team of producers is offering to cover the budget for a remake of The Last Jedi in order to save Star Wars. Share this and spread the word to let Robert Iger and at Disney know you want this. This isn't a joke. We're ready to have the convo now. Hashtag remake The Last Jedi. Hashtag Star Wars.
You serious?
If you've been on the internet the past week, perhaps you ran into this bit of hilarious comedy. On top of harassing Kelly Marie Tran and Daisy Ridley off of social media, Star Wars fans have gotten it into their head that The Last Jedi is just so bad that in order to save Star Wars, they themselves need to remake the film in its entirety. And the fundraiser for this project, fraudulent as it is going on right now. Why? Why is it that Star Wars The Last Jedi is so unforgivably bad that the only solution available is to nuke the whole thing to the ground and make it all over again? Well, I hate to get political on your asses, but it is hard to ignore the fact that these questions are partially answered by racism and sexism. I've heard many an excuse that Daisy Ridley and Rey is Mary's soul, and I've seen more hate directed at Tran and the character she plays than can be explained any other way. But that's not all of it, and I don't think that calling anybody who hates The Last Jedi racist is a productive way to discuss the film. There's another answer, which I want to discuss here. Why is it that this far down the line, Star Wars fans still hate The Last Jedi? Why is it that they're still saying that Rian Johnson ruined their childhood? Because he did. To answer why fans hate The Last Jedi so much, first, we need to go back and examine why those same fans loved The Force Awakens so much, at least at first. It's an understatement to say The Force Awakens trades in nostalgia. It'd be more appropriate to say that The Force Awakens drips with nostalgia. Every single element of the film is designed to evoke a feeling of the past. From the story structure, on to the production design, cinematography, and score, almost every frame of the film is imbued with this emotion. Even the driving force of the plot is nostalgia. Rather than Death Star plans as in the original trilogy, this movie's MacGuffin is the map to Luke Skywalker, aka the map to the past. Make no mistake, this is why fans like it.
There are stories about what happened.
It's true. All of it. The dark side. A Jedi. They're real.
If you're an American, chances are you've seen Star Wars. It's a pop culture monument. Even if you weren't in the theater in 1977 seeing the film as it first came out, chances are you associate some nostalgic memory with Star Wars. Perhaps you, as I did, watched A New Hope at your cousin's house, then proceeded to play every single Star Wars game and read every single Star Wars novel you could get your hands on. All of us have some association in our memories with that nostalgia.
Just
The Force Awakens presupposes this nostalgia and preoccupation with the past, and plays with that, for both comedic and tragic purposes. This also serves to explain why Star Wars films don't play well overseas, especially in Asia. Without the cultural weight associated with Star Wars, these new films feel hollow, lightweight, and alienating. With that nostalgia, It's a much more pleasant experience. I remember, a few months after the first film came out, I was talking with my high school librarian about Star Wars The Force Awakens. What she said was that watching the film felt like meeting old friends that you haven't seen in a while for the first time in many years.
Chewie. We're home.
The Force Awakens isn't just about the past. It's about nostalgia for the past. This is intentional, and it's what people wanted. After feeling alienated by the bizarre, unlikable, and often incomprehensible prequels, fans just wanted Star Wars back. You know, like it was when I was a kid. And that's what they got.
It was amazing. A lot of callbacks to the old movies, a lot of fan service. It was
totally true to the old films.
It was an emotional roller coaster.
It redeemed the prequels entirely. Thank God.
This is also why I struggled to enjoy the film. I nitpicked this movie to death. I tried to persuade people that it was bad, but I never managed to convince anyone. Now that I think about it, it's possible that I didn't like the film for the same reason that most other fans did like the film. The nostalgia. Believe it or not, I'm not really all that nostalgic about Star Wars. Now, sure, I liked the films when I saw them well enough, and I won't say no to watching the prequels even today, but I'm not that excited about them. While every other Star Wars fan on the earth rushed to see Force Awakens again and again, I ran the movie through my head over and over again, trying to understand it. I got annoyed. I got angry. I simply had no idea why anybody else could like a movie that, to me, had very little going for it. Now, fast forward 2 years later, and The Last Jedi rolls into theaters. I'm not exactly looking forward to it. I've been burned twice at this point by Star Wars, and I'm not exactly thrilled to be burned a third time. The reviews come out and are mostly positive. I don't really pay attention. The Force Awakens got good reviews too, and I didn't exactly like that one either. So why exactly would I like this one, if not that one? The film comes out, and I do my best to ignore it. Then, one night, about a month later, my brother comes over for dinner, and I hear him rant and rant about The Last Jedi for probably over an hour. And then I go online, and I read about the blistering amount of hate Star Wars fans have for The Last Jedi. I see Rian Johnson ruined Star Wars over and over again on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, and beyond.
Rian Johnson is an asshole.
The reason
Star Wars is just the most recent example.
Still hate it. Rian Johnson ruined Star Wars. I don't want to hear
the most popular and profitable IP in American history ruined in less than 5 years by SJW bullshit.
And made
The series
extremely
printed money for 4 decades and was ruined
who
in
then
less than
ruined the
change
script
the
with
fact
typical
that The
lit
Last
power.
Jedi. Please have the talk with your wife. Garbage. If
On the
you touch
topic
your
of high
kids,
school
Gordon Miller
taste,
fired from
damn it,
creative
Rian
differences.
Johnson, The Last
Trump
Jedi
fired.
of Star
more
Wars is
than it hurts
irreversible.
them,
Rogue One
but
gets
they'll
reviews.
hate you.
Solo
After
gets
5
reviews.
minutes of this,
Rian Johnson's The Last Jedi script gets past the first draft and somehow gets his own. Not go see any Star Wars movie directed by Rian Johnson. Ruined Star Wars and its legendary characters. Star Wars needs a restraining order for Rian
Killed off
Johnson.
at Hamill himself.
Hashtag boycott Rian
Yeah,
Johnson's
because
Star Wars
as
trilogy.
late as it is, I can't get over how much it sucks.
Ryan Johnson can
Before
chirp
you
and
can
clap
make
back
sports
all
movie
he wants on Twitter,
That's
but
Star
he won't
Wars.
change the fact that The Last Jedi was absolute
I wanna go see any
garbage.
Star Wars
Ryan
movie
Johnson
directed
is
by
an
Rian Johnson.
asshole.
He
He is
ruined
very
Star Wars
disliked
as
by the
legendary
majority of
character.
Star Wars
needs a
fans, yet
restraining order
acts
for
as if
Rian
nothing is
Johnson.
wrong.
Boycott
He also
Rian
acts
Johnson.
incredibly
Star Wars
smug about it
gender
too,
politics.
which makes people dislike him even more. He condescended George Lucas recently. He wishes he were as good as him. No, it's not.
Solo gets
Please
Joel
have a
Schumacher
talk
did
with
this
your wife.
atrocity years
Rian
ago with
Johnson's
Batman and the
The
fans
Last
still
Jedi.
remember.
The Last
It's
Jedi
clear
is
that
on
Rian
Netflix.
Johnson will be remembered
I
as
just
one of
rewatched
the
it.
fans for being the one who
I
created the
still
worst
hate
Star
it.
Wars movie.
Rian
Hashtag
Johnson
never
ruined
forget.
Star Wars.
Never forget.
I don't want to hear nothing. Don't talk to me.
Okay, you got me. I'm curious. I go and see The Last Jedi just to discover what everybody else is on about. So I walk into the theater wondering why everybody hated it so much. I walk out of the theater wondering why everybody hates it so much. Surprise, surprise, good old David liked it. Well, liked, not loved. I thought The Last Jedi was a good film, and certainly the best Star Wars film to come out since the 1980s. It's good, really. It is. Sure, the film was a bit tedious in the middle, and it did feel somewhat unsatisfying at moments, but overall it was good. It tried new things, and for the first time since these reboot films began, I felt like the series was finally looking forward instead of backwards. Problem is, not everybody felt that way. Now, some people, as I mentioned earlier, do have a tendency to write off all criticism of The Last Jedi as racism, sexism, or whatever other ism is popular right now. Can we pull the homophobia card too? Sure, why not? I don't think this is right, and I think there's more to it than that. I also think it's the wrong approach for people who like the film to make long-winded response videos to other people's videos about the movie to pick apart every single bit of reasoning that fans come up with to justify why they didn't like the movie. Without getting too psychoanalytical on your ass, let's just say it's not about any of those reasons that they'll mention. It's not logical. This new sequel trilogy doesn't operate on a logical basis. You might ask, for instance, why this new empire with far fewer resources than the previous one decided to build a third, even bigger Death Star after the rebels succeeded with far fewer resources to blow up not one, but two previous spherical death machines, the second of which caused the downfall of your entire empire. You might also ask why Leia Organa calls herself General of the Resistance and not the Republic. And I know there's a novel to explain this, I just don't care. The movie doesn't. It's not about any of that. It's about reliving that feeling you had when you first laid eyes on Star Wars. It's about emotion. And so is The Last Jedi. I'm going to contend that the reasons many people don't like The Last Jedi are not logical, but emotional. Why? Well, besides the fact that most of the criticisms are nitpicks that don't really carry any weight. Yeah, last I checked, it wasn't exactly custom for flag officers to tell their recently demoted subordinates their entire plan. Both The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens are thematically about the past. The Force Awakens is highly religiously reverent about the past.
It's true. All of it. The dark side. The Jedi. They're real.
But The Last Jedi is not.
Let the past die. Kill it. If you have to. That's the only way to become what you were meant to be.
Well, not entirely. In The Force Awakens, Rey, Finn, and even Kylo Ren are engaged in a galactic search for Luke Skywalker, who is the hero of the previous films. Thematically, I view this as a search for or a quest to reclaim the past. In The Last Jedi, however, we meet Luke, and he's not all we expected him to be. He's no Luke Yoda, and he's downright hostile to Rey's advances. He's critical of the Force and of the Jedi. On a thematic level, The Last Jedi is about this conflict between the need to move forward and the need to remember the past.
time it is. For you to look past a pile of old books. The sacred Jedi texts!
At moments, and with certain characters, The Last Jedi is downright critical of this reverence for the past seen in The Force Awakens.
Let the past die. Kill it. If you have to. That's the only way to become what you were meant to be.
I think this explains why so many Star Wars fans think that The Last Jedi, and by extension its writer-director, ruined Luke Skywalker. The hero of the films they love so much is now berating them, via Rey, for liking those films and viewing those films in a certain way. Luke Skywalker in the movie is obsessed with the past. He abandoned the entire universe because of one mistake he made. Over the film, Luke learns from Rey and from Yoda that the past doesn't have to define you, and that you need to learn from the past and move forward rather than simply repeat one brief, fleeting moment of time over and over again in your head. Sound familiar? Both Rey and Kylo Ren are obsessed with the past in different ways. Kylo Ren believes that his future cannot come into existence until his past has been completely destroyed. Rey is obsessed with the past that she doesn't have. She wants to find her heritage, her place in the universe through her search for her parents. When she learns that she has no special past, no important heritage, she doesn't know who she is. She's not a Skywalker, not a Solo, not anyone. But she decides this doesn't have to define her. Just because her parents were nobodies who abandoned her doesn't mean she has to be a nobody. This is a central message of the film. The past informs you, but doesn't define you. I don't think Rian Johnson hates Star Wars. I don't think he wanted to destroy it. I just think he wanted Star Wars to move forward. At the end of The Last Jedi, we see the Broom Boy, a metaphor for the audience of the film, looking to the stars, dreaming of adventure. What a different note to end on than either The Force Awakens or Rogue One. Both of those films, in their final moments, point either directly or indirectly to the original trilogy. The Last Jedi doesn't. It looks forward to new adventures in this universe. And I like that. I don't hate Star Wars, I just hate the nostalgia for Star Wars. I maintain that there is potential to build a large, diverse universe out of this franchise. You don't do that, however, when you're looking backwards. Star Wars on screen is a very small universe only because its focus lies in the past and not in the future. On some metatextual level, The Last Jedi criticizes this. Although we should remember the past, we shouldn't ignore the present nor the future. Much like Yoda when he burns the sacred texts, this film posits to us that we should move forward and look to new stories and new adventures instead of reliving the same ones on screen over and over again. I'm honestly surprised that Kathleen Kennedy and Lucasfilm allowed Rian Johnson to make this movie, especially considering what happened to Full Lord and Chris Miller. I'm really shocked that Lucasfilm had the balls to put out a movie that is critical of their entire business model, and I have to compliment them for that. I like The Last Jedi precisely because it's the first Star Wars movie I've seen this century that felt like it had its own creative vision beyond simply reliving the past. I suggest that, for the very same reason that I like the film, many fans do not.
Disney ruined Star Wars. Why did bloody Disney have to ruin my childhood for fucking money? That's all they want is money, and they go ruining my childhood. Why? Fans created the worst Star Wars momentum. Hashtag never.
When someone on Twitter says that Rian Johnson ruined their childhood, ruined Star Wars, or whatever else they'll say, perhaps now you'll understand what they mean. I want to make one thing very clear. These fans are sincere, and if you're one of those who didn't like The Last Jedi, I want to say that I believe you. I don't think you're right, but I believe you. If you walked into the theater to see The Last Jedi expecting to get another nostalgia trip like The Force Awakens, I can understand if you didn't like what you saw. I get that. If you go in looking to relive the past, only to be told that what you're doing is wrong, I can understand feeling angry, but I didn't want that. If I wanted to relive the nostalgia of watching the original trilogy, I would watch the original trilogy. I wanted something new in the sequel trilogy, and I got what I wanted. I'm excited to see where this universe goes now that the sequel trilogy is moving forward, and the standalone Star Wars films are, thankfully, a thing of the past. I look forward to see what the next generation of creative people come up with. Won't you join me?
Why does David make me record this shit?